This piece shows that no matter what happens in life, there's always hope and you can always get something good out of anything, no matter how bad it is. This piece is called This I Believe, Using Your Heartache, written by Fallon. There are many times when you cannot control what happens in your life. You can do everything right, but a good person, play by the rules, but at some point, bad things will happen. When difficult times occur, you have a choice. I believe you can choose to submit them or gain strength from them, and use what you learn in a positive way. Tragedy can become a blessing to others, and in turn, give you the tools to do things you never thought possible. Growing up, I had been very close to my father. I do not remember him ever speaking one unkind word to me. My parents divorced when I was 6, and I would spend most weekends with him. We would go grocery shopping for junk food, then watch our favorite movies such as Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone. We'd rewind the finale arm wrestling match at the end and watch over and over again and cheer like we were there every time. My dad would push the coffee table against the couch and let me do cartwheels in the living room. I would land and then jump so he'd catch me, like we were performing a complicated gymnastics routine. When I became a busy and somewhat self-absorbed teenager, I spent a little less time at Dad's and more on my social life. My dad had his ways to remain close to me. He would be at the kitchen table chatting with my mom when I got home from school just to see how my day was. There were always flowers for my birthday or if I was sick. He called before bed every night to say he loved me, and we would still watch Over the Top with pepperoni pizza rolls for dinner when I'd stayed over. At the end of my junior year, he insisted on signing my yearbook. To this day, I can't figure out why, but I am now glad he did. To my lovely daughter, who I love with all my heart, I'm sure you'll succeed in whatever you do. Love you so much, honey. Love, Dad. That is, in a nutshell, how he treated me every day of my life. Then a day went by without hearing from him. This wasn't normal. When he didn't respond to my phone calls, I remember him saying he had stomach pain the day before, and on a whim called the hospital to see if he was there. I honestly did not expect anything to come of it, but I was told he had been admitted and wasn't conscious. When I arrived, he was jaundiced and heavily sedated. I felt so small, just a kid standing in a hospital hallway watching staff hustle by. I finally flagged down a nurse, and she located my father's doctor. He told me in the kindest way possible that my dad had pancreatic cancer. There was nothing they could do, and he had less than 2 months to live. During the car ride home, I cried so hard I had to pull over. I begged God for help. I told him I never asked for much, and he could not take the person I lean on the most. I screamed that it wasn't fair. My dad never remarried and wasn't very close to his siblings. He was only 40. He was only 41 and hadn't planned for this. I was not a child anymore. I was now my father's next of kin and the person he and his nurses counted on. They moved him to a facility for hospice care. The medication would cause him confusion, and I'd get a call to leave school because he'd be trying to leave the building and wouldn't listen to anyone except for me. I would sit in a chair next to his bed every night. Sometimes I'd read until he'd fall asleep. But mostly I would talk to him for hours, even though towards the end the conversations were one-sided. I just wanted him to hear how much I cared, like he showed me every chance he could. My mom visited often, and once in a while I'd catch a class or run home to shower. My 16-year-old brother could not handle being around my father very much, but I did not resent it. It's as if I could feel pain radiating from him whenever he was visiting the nursing home, and I desperately wanted to protect him. On November 17, 2001, 5 weeks after his diagnosis, my dad passed away. There is no describing the grief I felt. I graduated, began taking some classes at the local college, and worked as a nanny. I lived my life, but there wasn't much direction, and there was always a hollow space inside me. Eventually, I met a friend who was a nursing assistant, and she suggested I go into healthcare. I decided to give it a try. After my first day of clinical training, I knew it was where I belonged. I immediately began pulling from experience to make me better at my job. When I began working in hospice, I would look into the eyes of a family member and see the complicated emotions I still felt deep inside me. I would take their hand and say, I know where you are right now. I know how it is to live this way. I now work on a surgical floor at a hospital. I see myself in every family member that is sleeping in a straight back chair next to a bed. and I see my Father in every patient that I touch. It provides me with endless patience and compassion. Whenever I am helping someone take a drink of water, assisting them in walking down the hallway, or covering them with a blanket, there are 2 people being healed, and one of them is me. The heartbreak of losing my dad was like acid. I feel like instead of letting it eat me alive, I am using it to understand people's needs, even if it was a traumatic experience that taught me how. I believe you have a choice. Let your pain overcome you, wonder why it happened to you. You could surrender, or you can acknowledge your grief. Embrace it, then stand up and say, this is what I have learned, and this is how I will use it to better my life and the lives of others. You may surprise yourself. So this piece is saying that we all face trials and have to deal with struggles almost every day, but we can't change the things that happen to us lives, so we need to learn to embrace them, and no matter what happens, even if it's negative, it can happen.